Wednesday, June 26, 2024, California Commission on Disability Access, full board meeting. And Presley, would you please begin the housekeeping matters?
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair Commissioner Holloway. This is CCDA staff member Presley Strother. This full commission meeting will be on Zoom via teleconference and held at the Hilton Irvine Orange County Airport Hotel in the Catalina Ballroom, located at 18800 MacArthur Boulevard in Irvine, California, 92612. Virtual attendees are in compliance with the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act. Please remember to specify the following. If a state body member attends a meeting via teleconference from a remote location, they must disclose any other individuals 18 years or older present in the room, as well as the relationship with them. The visual appearance of a member of the state body on camera may cease only when the appearance would be technologically impracticable. Public comment on matters not on the agenda are taken at the beginning of the meeting. Public comment on matters on the agenda will be heard as the Commission takes up agenda items for discussion. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes. Speakers who utilize translators to make public comment will be allotted no more than 6 minutes unless they utilize simultaneous translation equipment. CCDA is precluded from discussing matters not on the agenda. However, CCDA members may ask questions for clarification purposes. This meeting is being captioned and recorded. To assist in this effort, please state your first and last name each time you speak and speak loud and clear. The Stream Text Live captioning link has been included in the chat for your use, and staff can provide the link when asked. Public participants can use the raise hand function to alert the committee of when they would like to speak, and we will also give an opportunity for public members who have called into the meeting, at which time they can unmute themselves. If you are attending this meeting via teleconference, press *6 on your keypad to unmute or mute yourself. If you would like to alert CCDA staff, press *9 to telephonically raise your hand and staff will call on you. To use the raise hand function, please follow these steps. Using Zoom via web browser, first click on the icon labeled Reactions in the toolbar on the bottom center of your screen. After clicking Reactions, a new window will show on your screen. At the bottom right of the screen, there will be a button labeled Raise Hand. Using Zoom via mobile device, click on the 3 sideways dots labeled More. The More option is in the toolbar on the bottom right corner of the screen. After clicking More, a new window will pop up at the bottom of your screen. Press Raise Hand. Please remember to mute yourself if you are not speaking in order to reduce noise. If you are having technical issues throughout the meeting and need assistance, please use the chat function to alert CCDA staff or email ccda@dgs.ca.gov. If you are unable to utilize the chat function to alert CCDA staff, please unmute yourself and request for permission to speak. If you are having technical issues that impact the proceeding of the meeting, the body will take the following procedures. Stay calm and reassure. Communicate to all participants that technical issues have occurred and the CCDA staff is working to resolve them. Backup communication. Alternative messaging to all participants, mass email communication from the CCDA staff or email ccda@dgs.ca.gov. And then we will attempt the technical reboot. CCA staff will attempt to resolve any technical issues. And then if the technical issues persist and compromise the meeting purposes, the meeting will be adjourned and may be rescheduled if necessary. And with those housekeeping, I will pass it back to you, Vice Chair Commissioner Holloway.
Which is roll call and any other further housekeeping and the Pledge of Allegiance. And Kelsey will now lead us in taking roll.
Thank you, Vice Chair Commissioner Holloway. I will start roll now. Commissioner Christopher Downey. Commissioner Christopher Downey. Commissioner Holloway.
Present.
Commissioner Dillard.
Present.
Commissioner Dr. Elhessan.
Present.
Commissioner Jackson.
Present.
Commissioner Leon Vasquez. Commissioner Leon Vasquez. Commissioner Lillibridge.
Present.
Commissioner Dr. Popasa.
Present.
Commissioner Ramirez,
Present.
Commissioner Shapiro,
Present.
Commissioner Clair,
Present.
Commissioner Conway, Commissioner Conway. Okay, and with that, we do have quorum. I will pass it back to you, Vice Chair Commissioner Holloway.
Okay, thank you very much. Are we aware of any other commissioners, legislative members, or public officials in the meeting today? I think not. Okay. Are there members of the public who are joining us today? And one thing I would like to say is it's very rare for us to have a member of the public, and we're thrilled that Mr. Barr has come and joined us today as a member of the public. So how about a nice CCDA welcome for Mr. Stubby Barr? Please come back. Okay, I don't believe we have any other members of the public with us today. And so we've had done the roll call, we have a quorum. And so Mr. Littlebridge, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? And we have the flag right here at the front table.
Those that are able to stand, please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Littlebridge. Nice job. Okay. Let's see, anyone in the audience that would like to speak on a matter that's not on the agenda, now would be the time to do it. Mr. Barr. And we're going to bring a microphone over to you.
I would
just like to thank. How's this? Perfect.
Thank you. I want to thank each and every one of you for what you do, and I definitely want to thank your staff. They're extremely efficient. I've never worked with honestly, with a state agency that's that responsive. But thank you. I'm disappointed that there are fewer people here, but I want to thank you to anything. I'm an advocate, by the way. I'm an independent accessibility advocate. Anything that helps get the word for accessibility and helps people to provide accessibility is appreciated by the disabled community. You have no idea how much. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Let's see. Are there any other comments from the audience?
Vice Chair Commissioner Holloway, I just want to let you know that we do have former Commissioner Wheely and former Commissioner Leemhuis in attendance as a public member.
Terrific. Thank you both for joining us. Okay, if there's no other further comments on that matter, we'll go to item 2, which is approval of the March 20th, 2024 meeting minutes. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to look at the full commission meetings. And are there any questions or changes or modifications to the minutes? And that would be from anybody present or online. Any further changes, any other changes to the minutes? If not, Chair would appreciate a motion and a second.
Commissioner Dillard, motion for approval.
Commissioner Prafazza, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We don't need a roll call for the minutes, do we? Or can we do a voice vote? We have to do roll call. Okay, Presley, if you would call the roll, please, for the vote.
Thank you, Vice Chair Commissioner Holloway. This is Presley. I will start the roll call vote for the prior meeting minutes of March 20th, 2024. I will start with Commissioner Downey. Commissioner Downey. Commissioner Holloway.
Aye.
Commissioner Dillard.
Aye.
Commissioner Dr. L. Hessen.
Aye.
Commissioner Jackson.
Aye.
Commissioner Leon Vasquez. Commissioner Leon Vasquez. Commissioner Lillibridge.
Aye.
Commissioner Dr. Profasa.
Aye.
Commissioner Ramirez.
Aye.
Commissioner Shapiro.
Aye.
Okay, and with that, Vice Chair Commissioner Holloway, all CCDA commissioner votes have been voted and the motion carries. I will pass it back to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 3 is comments from the public on issues not on the agenda, which I jumped ahead previously to do. Are there any comments from the public online? Not on the agenda? Are there any comments from any members of the public present? None? All right. And with that, if there's no further comments from the commissioners or the public, we will move on to item number 4, which is commission tributes. And Executive Director April Dawson-Rawlings is here for that.
Thank you. Am I coming across clearly? Thank you. This is Executive Director Dawson Rawlings, and we are here to do a tribute for former Commissioner Guy Leemhuis. Commissioner Leemhuis is a wonderful person who has been instrumental in disability rights advocacy for decades, and without his early leadership, the commission, would not exist. And we have put together a special presentation with some current and former colleagues that have some words that they would like to share with you, former Commissioner Leemhuis. And I just want to say that on a personal note, when I became the executive director almost 2 years ago now, I had a lengthy conversation with Commissioner Leemhuis about leadership and about disability rights and where we've been and where we're going. And he was very candid with me about the commission and about how he sees how vital the role we play in the state is to ensuring business access for people with disabilities. And something that really stuck with me to this day is just the urgency of his words and just how purposeful and direct he is. And I just really value your leadership, and I thank you for never giving up in this fight. And I'm really excited to honor you. And so with that, I would invite the team to play our special tribute to you, and then we'll we do have a certificate that we're going to give you, and I know so we'll send that in the mail, but so we'll skip that part, but we're going to go right to the tribute video. Thank you.
I will publicly say that he is and has been this amazing energy force that held up the commission for these numerous years. I am forever grateful for his dedication, his vision, his forethought, as well as just some amazing humor.
I would describe Commissioner Leemhuis as passionate, dedicated, and with a strong sense of justice.
Very dedicated and devoted to the cause in regards to access and people with disabilities.
Steady, resolute, at times quiet, but very firm, very knowledgeable, and really brought a lot of knowledge and dignity to the post and to the commission.
He's a dear friend. I got to know him on the commission, and he was a great fellow commissioner, but he was and became a dear friend, and he's a real pro at doing what he does for CCDA.
A gifted storyteller and committed to disability access, and he's loads of fun.
A very charismatic social justice warrior with a smile.
So if you remember the origins of CCDA, it was California Business Properties Association and the California Centers for Independent Living, who decided that lawsuits were lawsuits, but what there really needed to be was a forum for dialogue between the disability community on the one side and the business community on the other side. And that's Guy. And Guy and I had this interesting relationship because we come from the disability community and the business community, sort of ideological opposites, and we worked so well together. And that was the whole point of CCDA. Can we get these two communities to work together and solve problems rather than just seeing each other in court? I am so grateful for Guy and what he has done there from almost the beginning, before I was, how he has helped CCDA become what it was originally intended to do. I mean, his work was just invaluable.
Commissioner Leemhuis's impact on the commission was tremendous. It was transformative. It really has brought us to where we are today. When he took over, it was actually, as chair, it was actually my first hearing as a commissioner, first time to be there. He was elected into office, but it took us from, at the time, a very small, scrappy, very passionate, small group to, with a very small staff, very meagerly supported staff in terms of budget and things. And through his tenure, really made a transformative leap in terms of ushering in appropriate funding, really partnering significantly with the CCDA staff and leadership together into state government to right size the budget, the funding, and really matured it from sort of an idea that was struggling to really get its traction and to take hold to something that really feels far more sustainable, very robust, and sort of a legitimate, fully baked, fully engaged staff and commission.
Well, there would be no CCDA without Commissioner Leemhuis. Commissioner Leemhuis was one of the early founders of CCDA. He really helped with the background negotiations that created the CCDA. He interfaced with the disability and business communities and really had a grand vision for what CCDA has become. And, you know, without his leadership over the last 20 plus years, we wouldn't have been able to sustain our model and been able to reach such a diverse group of stakeholders.
I really found he is able to ask questions that are needed in regards to clarification or actually supporting staff and other commissioners and being able to facilitate the discussion then moving forward on topics that are on the agenda.
Well, when I left CCDA, another became chair, and at one point in time, the prior ED, Angela, came to me while I worked at Disability Rights California and asked who might they approach to join CCDA. And immediately a number of us at DRC thought of Guy, and we thought his energy, commitment to diversity, and his experience and knowledge of disability access and the concerns of the business community, that he would actually be a perfect choice for the commission.
I brought actually our anniversary edition because it is full of really Commissioner Leemhuis' impact to CCDA. We have had an amazing journey of success, of victory, of building, and that has been the cool history and memory that I have in between the listening forums with legislators and the coffee chats at the Capitol and the workshops and the tools that was built for the business community. And the engagement of all walks of disabilities has been tremendous impact to the commission, and it has been led by Commissioner Leemhuis.
Commissioner Leemhuis always was just a very energetic, tireless, and passionate advocate for the disability community. So being that that was who he represented on the commission, he just did a very good job of respectfully yet very passionately advocating on behalf of those stakeholders.
Guy and I struggled through one issue in particular that I thought was most notable. When I was first with CCDA, we were, as a state agency, more or less on our own. And then along the way, we were tucked under the responsibility of Department of General Services. And DGS was great, but at first they really didn't quite know what to do with us, because on the one hand, we fit into the hierarchy of agencies reporting to the governor's office, but on the other hand, we had our own Senate and governor appointed group of commissioners who answered by their conscience as to what was important to them. And so it took a while for CCDA and DGS to figure out how to get along. And some of my favorite memories of working with Guy were the two of us as chair and vice chair sitting with DGS and helping figure out how, under their umbrella, we do what we were charged to do and do it well.
During his time in the commission, it began following various litigation-related activities and gathering data. While very committed to disability access and its issues, he worked to engage the business community and government on collaborating to ensure people with disabilities and access all parts of public life.
Commissioner Leemhuis, as I've said, it really took us to where we are today, really matured and evolved the commission into this really strong position we find ourselves in.
Unbelievably articulate and organized. And that was a very difficult task, especially as he led us during the pandemic, where we were all having to meet very, separately in a virtual setting. And that was quite often very difficult. But even in the in-person setting as well as the virtual, he was just very organized and kept us on point, as well as he was a leader who was very concerned about making sure everybody was heard, whether it was the public attendees or fellow commissioners. Even if our viewpoints didn't agree, he was always very sensitive to making sure that all opinions were heard and everyone was heard.
He has impacted me personally for a lifetime. And not everybody, I can say, has done that. That is because he saw in me my gifts and talents I brought. I've been a part of the commission for 10 years total. And before I became the executive director, he saw my gifts and talents. And so when I applied for the job as the executive director, he was part of the committee, and he was the person that called me to offer me the job.
So, Guy, I just want to say personally, I miss seeing you. I'm grateful for having worked with you. I understand you're retiring not only from CCDA, but also perhaps professionally, and I wish you well in your retirement. And I have no doubt that you will continue to have a profound impact on your communities because it comes from your heart. I just wish you the best, and I want to thank you for your many years of friendship. I hope I have an opportunity to see you again.
Hello, Guy. This is Drake Dillard, Commissioner Drake Dillard, wishing you the best. I'm told you're retiring. Well, I just retired, and it's nothing what they say it is. So look forward to working hard and having a good time in your retirement.
I with so much fondness. I think back on how he sort of showed me how to be a leader. I have a heck of a long way to go to get to the example he set, but I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity to follow his footsteps, to learn from him. And I really do miss his presence on the board, but so grateful for the time we had together and his service to the commission.
I really appreciate you, Guy, and all that you've done in regards to my work with you on the commission. And you'll be missed, and I hope we can always stay in contact as we move forward.
I think it's the reverend in him that I always loved hearing him talk. He always brought in his own personal experiences, and obviously we come from different backgrounds. So with his charisma and his style of speaking, it almost he could talk about the most potentially mundane topic, and you stopped and listened to him because it was almost like a mini sermonette, if you will.
My favorite memories of Guy involve sitting around a table in a restaurant, listening to stories of his life, laughing, and enjoying his perspective on disability, diversity, and life in general.
I think one of my fondest memories of Commissioner Leemhuis is we were at an executive committee meeting and we were having, a really important discussion about strategy, and he was able to chime in with some really insightful words about, why the commission exists and how we need to keep disability access at the forefront of what we do. And really he's always reminding us with urgency why we're here. And so that's what I'm going to most remember about my time working with him. And I know that we definitely have not, even though he won't be on the commission anymore, we definitely have not seen the last of him in the space. And I look forward to working with him in whatever capacity he continues on with.
And so Guy Leemhuis was the one who offered and gave me the opportunity, and also continued to support me as an executive director. There were some many times where if I didn't have his support, I'm not sure how successful we would have become in some of the projects that we were after. But he was there, he had my back. And so I believe he always knew I had his back, and I did, no matter what. And so we were a great force. Guy, Little Beth, Betty Wilson, Paravanya, Wheelie, Downey, that team, that core was a power force that made an impact on the state of California that I believe will leave a lifetime legacy, and I'm grateful to have been a part of it. Thank you for this opportunity.
Okay, this is Vice Chair Hollow. I want to thank everybody that was able to participate in the video tribute. Really appreciate your effort, and also staff for helping put that together. I think for my term, as long as I've been around CCDA, Guy Leemhuis, for the most part, was the chair. And he led us with, he steered the commission and the staff through changes in commissioners and executive directors and staff. And he did so with a steady, logical, moving forward direction and helpfulness. And I just want to say thank you for your hard work here at CCDA and your hard work at with the disabled community. And as Vice Chair, I just want to say thank you for all that you've done for all of us. What I would like to do is see if there's any comments or further tributes from commissioners virtually today.
Well, Guy, I
And
just want
those
to
in
say
person.
you're as good looking as ever, and it's really good to see you. I love the matching black t-shirts. We must be falling into the same rut or whatever. Just love to see your smile, and I'm really happy for you. And I'm really happy for the commission. This is a great day.
Any other commissioners attending virtually? Have any thoughts or comments or additional tributes?
Well, this is Angela Jamont, not a commissioner, but the former executive director. And so if I could just join in on that list of virtual comments, though I had my time virtually on the tape, I just have to say live how much I am so thrilled to be a part of that legacy. I cannot tell you how much it means to me to say that I was a part of that, but more so because I met you, Reverend Guy Leemhuis, Esquire, and I just know that you have so much more to give. You may be retiring from this leg of the race. We know you have so much in you. And so I'm just grateful that you are here to be able to receive it publicly and alive to hear it. That's another important thing. And that you continue to shine like you have. Thank you so much for all your gifts you gave to me and to the commission.
And welcome back, former Commissioner Wheely and former Executive Director Jamont.
Thank you.
Okay, any other commissioners present would like to say something?
Yes, good morning. This is Commissioner Ramirez. Reverend I really want to thank you on behalf of the disability community and the Native American Alaskan community. It is because of the work that you have done for our community that an openly queer Native person with a disability gets to sit in this position. And I thank you for your work. I stand on the shoulders of great disability advocates like yourself, and definitely am humble, and I hope that I'm able to meet the expectations of the great work that you have set before us. I hope.
Thank you. Commissioner Clair.
Reverend Leemhuis, I've enjoyed working with you. I appreciate your tireless effort to CCDA, and I wish you the best in retirement. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands raised, and I believe we've met with the commissioners virtually. Are there any members of the public present or online who would like to make a comment or present a tribute to Mr. Leemhuis? Okay. Again, I'm see if there's anybody from the public online attending virtually that would like to add a comment here. And now for one of the more important parts, we would like to hear from Mr. Leemhuis, who hopefully is attending online. We wish you were here in person, but please give us your thoughts.
I was trying to collect myself, very emotional. If you want to make me cry, do that again. The people that you put on the video, including Margaret Jacobson, was very moving. And thank you for taking the time, the intentional time to kind of speak to the journey that we've had together. And I appreciate being highlighted, but as Angela said, it was a team effort. And I'm glad she put all of the names of the team in the room, including some of you who worked with me. That was what gave me the most joy, was working with all of you and feeling united in a cause. Retiring, I don't think I'll ever retire, but I am shifting focus in my life, as you all have called up the name Reverend, and I will be approaching my third year as a full-time priest in La Crescenta, still doing some part-time law. You know, priests don't make a lot of money, but the Lord does provide. But I will be around, and I will be keeping touch with April. And for friends I haven't seen, I will be planning soon to visit. Most of you know I've had major surgeries over the last 4 years, which has also kind of limited me. But with my bionic body now and 2 new hips and totally reconstructed feet to ameliorate my Charcot-Marie tooth disease, I have a new lease on life, and I walk and ambulate without pain for the first time in my life. So I'm very thankful for the progress we've made, and I'm very, very grateful to all of you who give of your time. The young man who spoke about his position, that made me cry too, so I don't want to dwell on it too much, but just know that, you know, we are stronger together, and we have to continue to lead the charge to make sure that people with disabilities are not invisibilized, and that we have a can-do attitude, because people generally are good people. They just need sometimes some direction. And I so value our friendship, Doug, and what we were able to do in bringing what was seemingly 2 disparate communities together. But I think that at the end of the day, God is smiling down, because we know that we are all God's children. And so thank you so much for this tribute. April and staff, you were incredible. It just makes me smile every time I see all those staff positions, because I know how much money that is. And I'm very happy that we advocated for that, because we deserve it in the state to be able to be set up for success, not failure. So thank you all. Love you all, and I will be around. But I'm moved. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Guy, and please come visit us whenever you can, in person or online, anytime you would like. Thank you. Love to see you.
Thank you. I'm signing off,
Okay.
you all. Take care.
Thank you. Okay, are there any further comments from the public online or present, or commissioners present or online? None appearing. Then we will move on to agenda item number 5, which is the Disability Access Education Revolving Fund. And April Dawson-Rollins will give us an update.
Thank you, Vice Chair Holloway. This is April. And at our last Education and Outreach Committee meeting, Commissioner Dr. Prafatsa asked some really great questions about the Disability Access Education and Revolving Fund. And so I thought that this would be a good idea to answer some of those questions in the full commission, so that the answers could be a benefit to everyone. And then we'll also touch on it again at the Education and Outreach Committee level as well. And I know we have some new voices in the room and some new staff. And so just to give a little bit of background, the Disability Access Education and Revolving Fund is managed by the Division of the State Architect, and it was established by the state legislature for the purpose of increasing disability access and compliance with construction-related accessibility standards. And so, and some changes have been made as a result of legislation that has expanded the use of the fund as well. The primary use of the fund is for the education and retention of CASPs, and also to make sure that disability access compliance education is spread through California. And there was a bill that was passed, AB 2164, in 2022 that expanded the use of the fund, so that now municipalities are able to use some of those funds toward providing businesses with financial support for hiring CASPs and for disability access remediations. And so I wanted to share a little bit about what we've done to promote the fund and what we're planning to do in the future. And the way that the fund is generated is that $4 of every $4 of every building business permit, or however that municipality collects those fees, whether it's the city, the county, or a combination of both. Every time a business applies for a business permit, $4 of that fee goes toward the fund, and 10% of it goes back to the state architect's office for administration of the fund, and then 90% of it is retained locally for the uses that I just mentioned. And I'm happy to report that since the last time I shared this information with you, we have hired a full-time education and outreach specialist who started in June. Her name is Amber Thomas. She's currently in training, and we're excited that she's going to be interacting with municipalities as well as businesses and chambers and other groups to share information about the fund and make sure that those funds that are collected locally are used for the correct purpose, and to connect those entities with resources. And Commissioner Dr. Prafatsa had asked some questions about some of the numbers. And so I looked at the 2023 report that the state architect gives to the state legislature about how these funds are collected and used. And so I'm just going to give just a few numbers and then talk a little bit about some of the things we've done and what we plan to do in the future to collaborate with the state architect and others. And so in 2022, for the 10% admin, there were $984,938 in fees collected from local governments. And there were 302 reports that were submitted to the state architect from jurisdictions that reported a collection of $9,849,380. So that's that 90% I was telling you about before. And it's important to note that the state of California has 539 local governments, but not all of them submit reports or collect fees. And so if you're interested, the report from 2023 is about 23 pages long, and it's a really easy read, and there's several tables that could kind of break down, the names of the municipalities, whether it's a city or county or a combination of both, the ones that have paid fees and reported use of the fund, as well as those that are delinquent in doing that. And so there is about an 83% participation rate from local governments in this process. And so that is why it's really important for us to talk to the other 17% to let them know what this fund is used for, and make sure that they're reporting what it's being used for, and making sure they're collecting the funds properly. Some of our future goals involve publishing some case studies on how municipalities have utilized the fund for disability access remediation and retention and education of CASPs. And we also want to reach out to those who are not submitting reports or collecting the fees to help them correct that. And we also want to build the capacity of participating municipalities to understand what the DAR funds are and what their reporting responsibilities and use responsibilities are. Another question that Commissioner Dr. Prafatsa had during that meeting was to give a few examples of how the fund is being used by municipalities to help businesses with disability access remediations. And I do have one example, and as I mentioned, that our new DARF coordinator is going to be creating some case studies with some further examples that we'll put on our website, as well as share at future committee meetings and commission meetings. So the city of San Jose, who we partnered with last August for our very first listening forum, has a disability improvement grant for small businesses. And so if you're a small business that has been operating for at least a year and has no more than 50 employees, there's 2 phases of support. The first phase is you can receive funds to hire a CASP, and that would be a credit that's credited back to you. And then you also receive an $8,000 credit for things like building plans and permits and inspections if the CASP report recommends that you do those things. And then you can also apply for phase 2, which is up to $25,000 in access remediation costs for commercial operating businesses, non-residential businesses, and nonprofits. And also the final inspection after the CASP remediation could also be covered by those funds as well. So that's one example of how a municipality is using that new use of the fund. And so we're really excited to continue to partner with the state architect as well as others to get the word out. And we're really excited that we now have the staff capacity to do even more than what we've been doing. Another thing that we did last year, well, actually not last year, quite recently, is that we created a survey to send out to municipalities just to gauge their understanding of the fund and the use of the fund. And we're also planning to work with Amber's counterpart in the Division of the State Architect's Office to do some more presentations together and some webinars together. So really looking forward to that work. And so I just wanted to, I thought it would be useful to bring this to the full space to share a little bit about where we've been and where we're going with the funds. So thank you, and I welcome questions.
Okay, thank you. First, are there any comments from commissioners attending virtually on April's presentation?
Yes, this is Commissioner Elhassan. I serve on the chair for the Education Outreach Committee, and I'm excited about the new direction that we're moving into. I have been meeting one-on-one with our local municipalities in the area. And this is badly needed because they're very unaware or not knowing where the funds are going and many times. So thank you so much, April, for taking the lead in that. And I look forward in working with our new education outreach specialist to help get the word out and also educate local municipalities. In my area, I can meet with them one-on-one also. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other commissioners attending virtually would like to comment on this item?
Vice Chair Commissioner Holloway? Oh, there appears to be no indication.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners attending in person? Any comments?
Commissioner Profazza, I would like to thank April and your entire team for your responsiveness in responding to the questions and for your thoroughness in doing so. It's really very important information, and I'm excited about the direction that CCDA is going in, making sure that those funds are accessed by business communities for people with disabilities. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, any other commissioners present? None appearing. Excuse me, Commissioner Ramirez.
Sorry about that. Commissioner Ramirez from Ellicott County. I also definitely want to thank you, Executive Director, for this report on Los Angeles County with our diverse business population, especially with our minor small business owners. This is a really needed resources. As a commissioner with Los Angeles Commission on Disabilities, we look forward to engaging with your office to help inform both our localities in Los Angeles County, but our other disability commissions, so they can become more aware and definitely cooperate with you in the great work that you're doing in this particular front. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, any others? All right, comments from the public attending virtually on this presentation.
Vice Chair Commissioner Holloway, there appears to be no indication.
Thank you. Okay, anyone from the public, our guests today, any comments? Yes, we need a mic.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to stay where I'm at, if you don't mind. That is excellent to hear that we now have someone that's going to be doing outreach. I personally, since I do a lot of Title II stuff, I personally run across cities in the past that completely were unaware that they were supposed to be collecting these fees. It is excellent what San Jose is doing, and that type of presentation needs to be made available to municipalities. Some of the ones that I've contacted now, they're using it only to train their own staff exclusively, And they don't realize that the advantage, the real means of this is to help provide accessibility into small businesses. Unfortunately, the legislature did not include any auditing. So I guess it's up to you guys, and it sounds like you're starting to do this, and it's much needed. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Barr. Okay, any other questions on this item? Any other comments? Okay, I'd like to move to item 6, which is CCDA's outreach, and Executive Director Dawson Rawlings present this.
Thank you. And I just want to say that I've heard a couple of times now that we have some pretty awesome staff, which of course I know. And I know that some of you have gotten pretty used to my vocal stylings by now, but in future meetings, I think that we're ready to hear some diversity of voices. So we were just joking about that. It's April Dawson Rawlings again, but thank you for putting up with my vocal stylings. But I just wanted to give a plug for today's listening forum. From 3 to 5 p.m. It is in person here in this room at the Catalina Ballroom. For those of you who are online, we do not have a virtual component for this event, but we are going to do what we did for the San Jose Forum, which is offer in a couple of weeks an equivalent online component, an equivalent program with panelists and speakers. And opportunity to access questions. So there will be an online version of this, and stay tuned for more information. But I'm really excited about today's forum. We will have Commissioner Clair sharing some vital disability access tips for businesses, as well as answering some questions about accessibility that were submitted in advance when attendees registered. So thank you for doing that. And we also are going to have a panel with representatives from the local Orange County Center for Independent Living, the Dale McIntosh Center, as well as the president of the Newport Beach Chamber of Commerce, and a few others that will be sharing their insights. We'll also have a local CASP, Rick Martin, who will be on a panel as well. And I'm really excited about that. And so please stick around if you're here, or if you can hear me and you can get over here to the Orange County Irvine Airport Hotel, Catalina Ballroom, 3 o'clock. We're excited to have you, and stay tuned about the online component that will be coming up soon. The other outreach event that I wanted to share with you is we have been having a business series. We first called them Lunch and Learns, but for this next one, we're going to deviate from the lunch portion. I'll share a little bit about the first one that we did in my executive director report, but we're going to have a second of 3 business webinars in partnership with the Pacific ADA Center. And the next one will be on July 18th on Zoom from 3 to 4:30. And it will be a celebration of the ADA, as well as a look back of the last 34 years. And we're going to be talking about the Americans with Disabilities Act in today's world, as compared to 1990 when it was passed and signed into law. And we will be talking about some court cases that have helped shape the way that the ADA is applied, and how that shifted over time, especially with the ADA Amendments Act of 2008, as an example. And we'll also be hearing from a panel of CCDA stakeholders who are going to talk about not just the Americans with Disabilities Act, but also the 25th anniversary of the Olmstead Supreme Court decision, which ruled that unnecessary isolation of people with disabilities was a violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act, and required Title II entities to have a plan to make sure that people who were able to, which everybody is able to live in the community where they want to be, so with support. So we will be hearing from people who are faces of Olmstead, faces of the ADA, who are going to talk about how those two critical pieces of civil rights impacted their lives. So we're excited about that. And so please come to today's forum, the future online version, as well as the webinar on the ADA and Olmstead anniversaries on July 18th from 3 to 4:30 on Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you, Executive Director Dawson Rawlings. Okay, do we have any comments or questions from commissioners attending virtually on this outreach presentation? Okay, none appearing. Comments from commissioners attending in person? Okay, none appearing. Comments from the public attending virtually? Any questions or comments?
Vice Chair Commissioner Holloway, appears to be no indication.
Okay, and Mr. Bauer, for our guest in person, we're good? Thank you. Okay, no further questions. I'd like to move to agenda item number 7, which is our legislative bill tracking. And I'm not sure how this works. Is it a virtual presentation?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. Thank you, Vice Chair Commissioner Holloway. This is Mallory Michael. I work as a legislative consultant here in Department of General Services. And thank you so much for having me today. Happy Wednesday. So today I'll be providing an update on 2 bills, AB 1757 and AB 3279. So AB 1757 is an Assembly Member CALRA bill. This bill relates to internet websites and accessibility. This bill was previously a Judiciary Committee bill that was introduced last year. It just started to move again and was recently amended. This bill would provide that statutory damages based on a specific accessibility barrier on an internet website under these provisions shall only be recovered against an entity as defined if the internet website is not accessible as defined. The bill would require the plaintiff to prove either 1, that the plaintiff personally encountered a specific barrier that causes the plaintiff to experience a difference in the plaintiff's access to or use of the internet website compared to other users because the internet website was not accessible. Or 2, that the plaintiff was deterred from accessing or using all or part of the internet website or the content of the internet website.
Mallory, you're breaking up a little bit. We'll see if that's on our end. But you may have to repeat yourself after you said the word internet website.
Internet website was not accessible. Can y'all, it says unstable network connection on my end, so maybe it's on my side. I'm gonna turn my video off, see if that helps. Can y'all hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. I would just go back to one of the 2 things that the plaintiff has to prove. I'll repeat the second part because I don't know where exactly I cut off. The plaintiff was deterred from accessing or using part of the internet website or the content of the internet website because it was not accessible. The bill also establishes an affirmative defense to the claim, including that the entity identified the specific accessibility barrier in a digital accessibility report posted on their website. This bill was heard on June 24th, just 2 days ago in appropriations, and it was sent to the suspense file. And AB 3279, it's the Committee on Judiciary bill. This is the State Bar of California bill. This is their annual bill that reauthorizes the fees for licensed and for licensed attorneys, and then it does some policy reforms for the agency. This bill contains a number of items, most notably the fee increase for active and inactive attorneys. I think most noteworthy for CCDA is that this bill deletes a reference to an April 30 report deadline. And that's because the date to be included is in the annual discipline report that is now due on October 31st. So that's just a technical alignment with previous changes in law. So it's just an alignment, it's technical. And then the bill also requires beginning July 1st, 2026 until January 1st, 2030, the state bar to annually report to the legislature on the number of complaints regarding access issues relating to the biannual state bar. And that's because the committee has received a few complaints that the state bar, when they examine the examinees, when they're taking the test, they have some complaints on accessibility. So the committee is now asking for a report so they could keep track of those and see what the complaints are being logged as. And this bill will be heard in Senate Judiciary on July 2nd. Those are the only two bills that I have flagged for report at this time. I'm happy to take questions, and that's all on my end. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mallory. First of all, let's see if there's commissions attending virtually online that had any questions on the ledge report.
This is Commissioner
Right.
Littlebridge. Mallory, could you repeat what the report for AB 3279 is for again? The annual
Yeah,
report?
of course. Are you talking, I am assuming you mean the bill requires the state bar from July 1st, 2026 to January 1st, 2030 to report to the legislature the number of complaints regarding access issues relating to the biannual state bar. I think that's what you're asking.
Yes, thank you very much.
Of course.
Okay, thank you. Any other commissioners attending virtually have any questions on our ledge report?
Vice Chair Commissioner Holloway, there appears to be no indication.
Okay, thank you. Are there comments or questions from commissioners attending in person? Commissioner Ramirez.
No, thank you very much. I appreciate the update on Bill 1757. One of the things that I hope while it's in the suspense file, that there can be further analysis of the new federal regulations regarding internet website accessibility and app, particularly not only for our public sectors. I think as a person with a disability, often that I utilize this internet, me and my peers oftentimes experience even more significant disability access barriers, not necessarily with our business or commercial partners, but with some of our state and healthcare agencies in which we have to utilize either remote, web-based, or app-based services. And because of significant problems that we've had, more evidently during the pandemic, we've actually had to reach out to our federal partners of the Department of Justice to seek remedies and new regulations. So I hope that as this bill is being further evaluated in the suspense file, there can be a reconciliation of some of the issues that people with disabilities in California are currently experiencing, accessing not necessarily commercial or business website entities, but some of those websites and base apps that we utilize and that are funded by both state government and federal funding sources to access some of our health and education services. So I look forward to any further updates on this particular bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other commissioners attending either virtually or in person have any questions or thoughts on the ledge report? None appearing. Okay. Those members of the public attending virtually, any questions or thoughts on the presentation? None
Vice Chair
appearing.
Commissioner Holloway, there appears to be no indication.
Thank you, Presley. Okay, Mr. Barr, any questions? Thank you very much. Okay, what I'd like to do at this point, before we move on to item number 8, how about we take a 5-minute break? So before we go on to item number 8, April, did you have anything you needed to say?
I just wanted to say that we will be taking a roll call vote right before the adjournment. That's the only action item. So we're still in compliance with Begley Keene, and thank you for indulging our need to take a little break for a second to take care of ourselves.
Thank you. Okay, action item number 8 is the CCDA projects and meetings, and Executive Director Dawson Rawlings will present.
Thank you, Vice Chair Commissioner Holloway. This is April. I wanted to just give a high-level summary of a few of our most active projects and meetings coming up. And if I do not mention a project that you had been tracking, then please feel free to ask. But I wanted to share the ones that are that have the most recent updates. We have an education and outreach committee meeting on July 24th from 1:30 to 3, and all of our commission subcommittee meetings are hybrid. So you can join on Zoom or you can attend at our in-person location in Sacramento at 400 R Street, Suite 312. And so here's a couple of projects and events that we're working on that I want to share with you. The first is our social media pilot and video project for our new voices in the room. Since March 1st, we have been collaborating with the Department of General Services Office of Public Affairs on a social media pilot. Prior to that pilot, DGS was the way that we would get the word out about the commission was that we would do it through the DGS banner, and they would post on our behalf through the DGS already established channels. And this allows us greater access to our stakeholders by still going through OPA for those approvals of our social media content, but it allows us to have our own YouTube and Facebook channels, and we'd be able to use our own logo in addition to DGS's logo so that we can more directly brand ourselves and have an identity to our stakeholders in the business, disability, local government, and legal communities. So we're really excited about that. And we have been maintaining we have, I believe, over 160 followers on Facebook. And so I encourage you to like and follow our Facebook. We also have a YouTube channel where we will be posting where we have been and will be posting both our historical and current recordings of all of our listening forums, webinars, trainings, and full commission and subcommittee meetings. So I'm really excited about that. So please become a regular follower and join my mom and my mother-in-law and my husband in that effort. And so I wanted to also share that in addition to our social media pilot, we're launching a video series in collaboration also with the Office of Public Affairs with DGS. They're going to provide the crew, and we're going to provide the actors and the script content. And so we are going to be launching a series of 10 videos, and they are going to be what's CCDA all about. We're also going to be covering some examples of how businesses can maintain their accessible features, customer service for people with disabilities, effective communication, and accessible parking. And our hope is that we can utilize the stakeholders that regularly attend our meetings and forums as actors and content advisors in those meetings to plan those videos. So we're going to start with 10 videos. The first one will be what is CCDA 101, and you may see Phil. He's trying to be conspicuous, but he's taken some B-roll of us today so that we could create that first video. And what we're going to do is we're going to do one video at a time and try to release them about once a month or once every other month. And then hopefully after those 10 videos, we can expand on that. Our hope is to also be able to create videos that are in multiple languages and also American Sign Language as well. We will have American Sign Language and captioning and audio description embedded in the 10 initial videos and all of our videos to make them fully accessible. But I also want to make sure that we're being culturally competent and making sure that some of those other languages and cultures sort of take the lead in some of the future videos as well, because we want to make sure that we're representing the community that we serve. So excited about that. And also, we've sort of picked a theme for the videos. It's going to be, we're going to do like a myth-busting news report show. So some of us are going to be pretending to be news reporters going out and saying, I heard grandfathering was real. What's happened? We're going to be really fun. So it's going to be a really fun adventure and bust some myths about access. And I hope you'll all join me on that journey. So take a look out for that. We also have been well underway with the accessible parking campaign. We have released the toolkits for business owners as well as the construction industry. They're public now and on our website. We've shared the PDFs with the stakeholder groups that helped create the two toolkits, as well as the commissioners. And I am planning in the coming days some strategic meetings with partners such as the California Business Properties Association, CALBO, which is the building officials group, and the Contractor State License Board, to talk to them about how we could best utilize the content for their stakeholders. We also are in the process of getting the physical books printed. So we have two toolkits, and as you can imagine, we're doing that through our process with the state. So it's taking a few weeks, but it's happening. And we're also translating them into multiple languages, and also making sure that the renderings are also translated into multiple languages as well, the drawings. So we do not have the printed versions yet, but the PDF versions are being distributed, and we're planning future meetings around how we can embed them in our future our webinars and our future listing forms as well, and get them out into the hands of people that need to hear about it. And I'm excited. I know some of you are some of the commissioners are scheduling one-on-ones with me and talking with me strategically about how to effectively get the toolkits out to your communities of interest as well. So that's very helpful. Thank you. I also want to talk a little bit about where we're at with our listening forums. Of course, we have our listening forum today from 3 to 5 here in person at the Catalina Ballroom at the Orange County Hilton Airport Hotel, which I plugged earlier. So you're welcome to attend that. We also have been having meetings with Los Angeles, with the city of Los Angeles, about hosting a Greater LA forum. We are planning to have a webinar as well as a in-person forum. The webinar is expected to be in fall, and the in-person forum will be in early 2025. And we're planning on in 2025 and 2026 spending more time going up and down the state, following the trends of where our data is showing that the businesses need the information the most. And we're really looking forward to doing that. So thank you for listening. And also my plan is to engage each of the commissioners. So by the end of 2025, hopefully the majority of the commissioners have either taken a role as a moderator in a forum or been a person who, a moderator in a forum, or someone who is sharing stakeholder resources for a forum, or play some role in each of the forums, so everybody will get a chance. So thank you. This is just a little bit about the projects we have going that are the most active right now, and happy to answer your questions.
Okay, thank you, Executive Director Dawson Rawlings. So first of all, we will go to commissioners attending virtually. Any questions or thoughts on Executive Director's report on meetings and projects? None appearing. Commissioners present, any thoughts or comments? None appearing. Okay. Anyone attending virtually and from the public, please give us any thoughts or comments. Do we have anybody?
Vice Chair Commissioner Holloway, there appears to be no indication.
Okay. Anyone present? Any or public member present? None appearing. Okay. So normally we would go to Executive Director's report now, but we're going to take a 5-minute break, and we'll be back. In session, and we're going to go to item number 9, the CCDA Executive Director's report, which will be given today by Mr. McFall. You're on.
Thank you, Chair Commissioner Holloway. Hello, everyone. My name is Phil McFall. I'm the Operations Manager here for California Commission on Disability Access. I will do my description. I am a Black man, bald head. Sorry, I didn't prepare for this today. A little bit of
do
a
what we all do.
Right. So, and I will be filling in for April for just a moment. So today I'd like to give you our executive director's report. So CCDA partnered with the County of Monterey Office of Civil Rights to conduct a listening forum for small businesses and the disability access community in April. CCDA partnered with the Pacific ADA, additionally, CCDA partnered with the Pacific ADA and the City of Sunnyvale to conduct an ADA Title II, Title III training webinar for city staff and area businesses, and that was also in April. CCDA partnered with the Pacific ADA Center for the first of a 3-part webinar series on small businesses in May. So plenty going on there in that arena. Commissioner vacancies, there's one vacancy on the CCDA, there's one vacancy on the CCDA representing the interests of people with disabilities. The appointment authority is the Senate Rules Committee. Reappointments, we had quite a few reappointments. So Chair Commissioner Downey, Commissioners Littlebridge, and Commissioner Dr. Pravatsa, CCDA governor appointees were confirmed by the Senate at the end of May. Commissioner Shapiro, a governor appointee, was confirmed by the Senate in February. Commissioner Leon Vasquez, a Speaker at the Assembly appointee, is waiting a reappointment currently. Staffing updates. Executive Director Dawson Rawlings successfully completed the ADA Coordinator Training certification through the Great Plains ADA Center in May. CCDA is now fully staffed. We hired program technician, and that would be Sabina Nakarmi. And we also hired a staff services analyst who is going to now be our E&O, our E&O education analyst, outreach analyst, and that is Amber Thomas. They both recently started. Amber started at the beginning of June, and Sabina started at the beginning of April. Then we go to the financial operation highlights. So, we're not doing that. There it is. Okay, thank you. Q3 financials, including the high frequency litigant fund spend down report, are attached and will be reviewed by the Executive Director Dawson Rawlings at this meeting. CCDA management continues to meet with budgets and contracts monthly. The May revise of the governor's budget was released. There is trailer bill language shifting funding for CCDA from the general fund to the disability access account. No change proposed to the high frequency litigant fund. Executive Director Dawson Rawlings and yours truly, Operations Manager Phil McFall, initiated our own lease renewal with the Real Estate Services Division. Our current lease expires in 2 years. And that would be it.
End of report?
What was that? That's the end of my report. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Pass it back to.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. McFall. We really appreciate that. Do we have any comments or questions from commissioners attending virtually on this, on Mr. McFall's report? None appearing. Do we have any comments or questions from the commissioners attending in person today? None appearing. Okay. Do we have any comments or questions from members of the public who are attending virtually today? None appearing. And any comments or questions from our member of the public? Mr. Barr? Thank you very much. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mr. McFall. And if there are no further questions, we're going to move on to agenda item number 10. And Mr. McFall is going to introduce our special presenter. We're thrilled to have her in a different role today. So, Mr. McFall, will you be introducing our speaker?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Holloway. Chair Commissioner Holloway, my name is Phil McFall. I'm the Operations Manager for California Commission on Disability Access, and I'm here to introduce today's speaker, Commissioner Ida Clair. She's an FAIA State Architect. As State Architect, Ida Clair, FAIA leads the Division of State Architect in its jurisdiction for plan review and construction oversight for the California's public K-12 schools and community colleges in administration of the Field Act and plan approval in the accessibility for state-funded construction. She also is responsible for regulatory development for Title 24, Part 2, California Building Code, Chapter 11B, accessibility regulations for the state's public accommodations, commercial facilities, and public housing, and develops and maintains vital references and resources to assist clients in meeting accessibility standards, administers the Certified Access Specialist Program, CASP, and is an accessibility educator through the DSA Academy, a continuing education program for design and construction professionals. Commissioner Clair serves as ex officio member of the California Commission on Disability Access, and I'd like to introduce to you Commissioner Ida Clair.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you for that lovely introduction. Welcome, all of you. I'm happy to present today a little bit about what DSA does, specifically when it comes to developing the regulations in Title 24, Chapter 11B related to accessibility. Will you start the presentation? And do you want me just to say, I didn't get I don't believe. Thank you. I can just say next slide, please, if it makes it easier. Want to do that? Okay. Okay, so yeah, if you could bring up the presentation.
I just want to say while we're waiting, I have never seen text on the screen that large before. And I appreciate that. I can actually read it.
Okay.
Always have text so small.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Next slide, please. Oh. Okay, briefly about the Division of the State Architect. We have 5 offices, one in Oakland, one in Los Angeles, one in San Diego, and one in Sacramento. And those are our regional offices, and they administer our public school and community college plan review and design and construction oversight. We also have our leadership and headquarters, which is located in Sacramento, which includes myself, a deputy to the state architect, Kirk Kooknick, principal structural engineer for codes and standards, Diane Gould, principal architect for codes and standards, Eric Drever, and Eric is the one who leads our accessibility development, regulatory development, and then our chief of administration, Justin Smith. Next slide, please. As I stated, we do have 4 regional offices. Each regional office is led by either a principal structural engineer or principal architect as regional office manager, and they are the ones who perform design review and construction oversight. Our headquarters does our regulatory development and establishes policy consistency among the regional offices and code interpretation. Next slide, please. So in our role for design and construction oversight, if there is a building that occurs on a public school or community college campus, it comes to DSA for review. Our specific review is related to structural safety, fire and life safety, and access compliance. And you can see the number of community college campuses and K-12 campuses that we actually have responsibility and oversight for. We also provide structural safety and access compliance review, plan approval for state essential service buildings, and then plan approval access compliance for state buildings, California State University, University of California, and all state-funded construction. Next slide, please. We have additional authority at DSA, some certification programs, project inspector, we train them for access when they are actually doing the inspection on school campuses. We have testing lab certification and also the certified access specialist program. And we do code development for a variety of parts of Title 24, specifically Chapter 11B is the regulations related to accessibility. Next slide, please. So, yeah, so a little bit, excuse me, about the rulemaking process. This is a public process and we encourage everyone to participate. And I'm going to highlight the process and show you when the opportunities for participation are. Next slide, please. So DSA is given this authority to write the state's accessibility requirements in two sections of the government code. One is 4450 and one is government code 19955.1. 4450 covers public accommodations, commercial facilities, and public buildings, and that includes sidewalks, not streets, but sidewalks within the state. And then government code 19955.1 is our responsibility for public housing. Next slide, please. So DSA has the authority to write accessibility regulations for the built environment, as I stated. We are a regulatory agency. We're not an advocacy group. And that there's a very important distinction with that when we deal with our regulatory process. We actually have to listen to all stakeholders. DSA develops accessibility regulations based on executive action, and that would be an example of the governor's mandates for increasing electric vehicle charging in the state. So we wrote regulations to respond to the governor's executive action on electric vehicle charging. Legislative mandate, any statutes that are passed through the legislature, such as the regulations we wrote for adult changing facilities, that was a legislative mandate. And our third qualification is a demonstrated need identified by either DSA or proposed by others. And that can be proposed by enforcement entities, individuals with disabilities, the variety of stakeholders we have. DSA is required by building standards law to evaluate the impact of the accessibility regulations on all stakeholders. And DSA is only an enforcement entity for public schools, community colleges, state buildings, CSU, and UC. All other buildings and facilities are enforced by other entities, which is usually the local building department, of which it was already stated earlier today, there's about 500 and some odd jurisdictions in the state that enforce accessibility regulations in addition to DSA. Next slide, please. So all building standards that we're required to propose must meet a 9-point criteria, and this is in building standards law. So we can't write regulations that conflict with, overlap, or duplicate other building standards. The proposed building standards are within the parameters established by enabling legislation and are not within exclusive jurisdiction of another agency. So I discussed that authority. No other state has the authority to write. No other state agency has the authority to write other accessibility regulations, except for housing and community development for private housing. Public interest requires the adoption of the building standards, and it's related to health and safety, resource efficiency, fire safety, seismic safety, building and building system performance, consistency with environmental, public health, accessibility statutes, and regulations. The proposed building standards are not unreasonable, arbitrary, unfair, or capricious in whole or in part. The cost to the public is reasonable, meaning that when we pass an accessibility regulation, we're required to disclose the anticipated financial impact of that regulation. And so we have to demonstrate that it's reasonable. Based on the overall benefit to be derived from the building standard, and the proposed building standards are not ambiguous, vague, in whole or in part. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. It's not, there we go. As I stated, we must provide, every time we do a regulatory package, we must provide an economic and fiscal impact. And so it assesses the benefits and costs of the proposed regulations. Non-monetary benefits, such as the protection of public health and safety, prevention of discrimination, promotion of fairness or social equity. And we must determine the impact of a regulatory proposal on the state economy, businesses, and the public welfare. And we must determine the cost of enforcement and compliance to the agency and to affected business enterprises and individuals. So every regulatory package we advance must take into consideration these items, and we must demonstrate that to the Department of Finance. Next slide, please. So the rulemaking cycle is administered by the California Building Standards Commission. There is a rulemaking cycle every 18 months. There is a rhythm and a process to that cycle. Our present cycle right now is the 2024 triennial code adoption cycle. So the code is adopted every 3 years. Presently, the code is the 2022 code. The 2024 triennial code adoption cycles for the 2025 code, and that code becomes effective January 1st, 2026. Sorry, yeah, no, yes, January 1st, 2026. And so we are working well in advance of the effective date of the code. So you can see that the work we're doing now is not going to be effective for a couple of years. And so this process that we're in right now we are preparing our final submittals to the Building Standards Commission. And what will happen next is there will be a 45-day public comment period where you have an opportunity to review the regulations, provide comment. DSA is responsible to respond to each of those comments that are made within that 45-day public comment period. After we provide those comments and respond to those comments, we prepare a final package that goes to a commission meeting in December. And in December, we present the package to the commission, and the commission adopts the regulations or determines that some of the regulations may need further study. And so that is part of the process. Our work involves a lot of public outreach that has already occurred. I'll get into that a little bit more. That's when all of our stakeholders can participate. But this, what we call the rulemaking cigar, this graph, the cigar graph, tells us the process, and it's established before every building standards rulemaking. The process does involve a code advisory committee meeting, which April attended in June 4th. And so we passed that process and received an initial comment on our packages. And as I stated, now we're preparing our package for the 45-day public comment period, which is required by building standards law. Next slide, please. So you can find information on our packages on the Building Standards Commission website. You will find it under our present requirements under the Code Advisory Committee meeting. You can see that the Access Code Advisory Committee was June 4th and 5th. We still have other code advisory committees, but those will not contain accessibility provisions. The access provisions were held June 4th and 5th. Next slide, please. So here's a little bit of how we create the regulations. Next slide, please. So we have pre-cycle activities. One method that we have for outreach is called a task force. So for example, when we had a task force for electric vehicle charging, we invited station providers, individuals with disabilities, state agencies, business owners, building officials, design professionals, all EV drivers, EV advocates, disability advocates. They were all stakeholders in consideration of developing accessibility regulations for electric vehicle charging. And that required a task force. And that means very targeted, focused efforts so that we could get information fed to DSA, a very broad question and answer process. And then from that, we develop regulations. And then it goes into what we call our public outreach phase in our pre-cycle activities. Additionally, what we have in our pre-cycle activities is a public hearing for individuals with disabilities where they can bring proposals to us for us to consider in advancing the regulations for that code cycle. And again, those code cycles occur about every 18 months. And then our other public outreach allows us an opportunity to really listen to the requests of individuals with disabilities as to what challenges they are facing in the community to determine if a regulation can actually be responsive to that need. What we have here graphically is the Division of the State Architects Access Compliance Code Development website. And you can see with the drop-down menus, our active rulemaking where you can find our regulations and previous rulemakings as well. So you can see that information. Next slide, please. We also have a group called the Access Code Collaborative, of which April Dawson Rawlings, the executive director, is an ex officio member. So we're each ex officio members on each of our groups. The Access Code Collaborative is a selected group of individuals. Individuals apply to be on the ACC, and it's representative of constituency groups. And it is our smaller group effort to hear from the variety of consistencies, but specifically to our feedback early in the process so we can get that feedback very tailored before we go to the Code Advisory Committee and also have a public hearing on the regulations. This process is extremely important because we hear a lot about the impacts for each of the individual stakeholder groups. On here is the website that DSA has for the Access Code Collaborative. Periodically, the members serve 3-year terms. They apply and they're selected by our partners at Disability Works. Is that the correct name now? Disability Works, our partners at CCDA and DSA. And together, we select those members. Those members are actually required to do outreach to their constituency group and bring feedback to DSA as well. So we have a multidimensional approach in getting feedback and outreach to the disability community and all our stakeholders. Information on the ACC is on our website. Next slide, please. So let's go back one. So I had mentioned before that, go back one. It's okay. I had mentioned before that we have a source of code change proposals. They're based on what we call our demonstrated need. So either it's a state legislative mandate, maybe there's a change to federal standards. We are required at DSA to meet the minimum of the federal standards. And so when the Federal Access Board and U.S. Department of Justice develop standards and regulations that are in effect and enforced, we are required to undertake a rulemaking and ensure that those requirements are also in our building code. Stakeholder initiative, as I said, in our public outreach, we also receive requests throughout the year from our for code proposals on our DSA Form 665. Staff initiated, meaning we get a lot of calls and questions and we're like going, maybe we really should clarify this because we're getting consistent inquiries. Oftentimes technological advancements also require accessibility regulations. For example, destination-oriented elevators and the technological interface, we have California-specific regulations for those. And then also petitions from the Building Standards Commission. Next slide, please. So a demonstrated need is either a need for clarity, meaning this regulation isn't clear, we want additional clarity. So it's not always a new regulation. Sometimes we make amendments based on clarity. Need for scoping. If there's something that's not adequately addressed to a specific good or service, specifically a service in the access code, then we could provide additional scoping, which states minimum numbers, how many, where it's located, or the need for enforcement. In other words, our language falls short of being able to be enforced. And so it may need additional clarity as to enforcement language. So that is how we evaluate our regulations on demonstrated need. Next slide, please. So in the pre-cycle rulemaking activities, we have a demonstrated need. Now, as I mentioned before, we have some task forces. This occurs even prior to this, right? So if there's something that necessitates a task force, that process of investigation and inquiry has already occurred. And then when we get to the point of when we're trying to determine which regulations we're advancing or refining the language, we base it on the demonstrated need, as I mentioned. DSA formulates the code proposals and it goes to the Access Code Advisory Committee. Sorry, the Access Code Collaborative. The Access Code Collaborative gives us feedback. We refine the proposals. It goes to a public hearing, and that's fully public participation. We get feedback. We continue to refine those proposals. Then we go to the BSC Code Advisory Committee. That was the meeting that we had in June. And we get additional feedback. So you can see that there's this process of constant refinement and improvement of the regulations in the pre-cycle process. This is even before it's formal rulemaking. Next slide, please. Once we've presented to the Code Advisory Committee and we get their input, we determine as well amendments as needed. We respond to the comments of the Code Advisory Committee. We go typically back to the ACC if the comments require us to have more feedback. In other words, there's been some substantial change and we need feedback. It doesn't always go back to the ACC. Like in this code cycle, it didn't, because our code, they were refined enough that we didn't have significant change that we had to go back to them. That's also another opportunity for another public hearing. Again, we didn't have another public hearing for this because our proposals were developed enough that from their information, we were able to propose it. So we've prepared our documents. Now we've submitted to the Building Standards Commission for a 45-day public comment period. That should be sometime, I believe, in July or August. And I will let you know how you can be informed of when those times are in a minute. It is within those 45-day public comment period that we receive your comments from everyone, and we must, for the rulemaking record, respond in writing to each of the comments made. Once we do that, we prepare a final package for the Building Standards Commission meeting in December. They listen to our entire package. They also listen to the voices of the constituents, which may support or be against any proposal that we're proposing. And then if all the standards are adopted or the standards that are adopted become new regulation. When they're adopted, when they are approved 1 year in advance of their effective date. That allows 6 months for publication in the new code edition, and then another 6 months where they can be referenced by design professionals as they're designing, because the requirements in the building code are effective on the day you submit for plan approval. So you need that 6 months ahead, because if you're submitting January 1st of the effective date, you need to know what those regulations are because they're effective. Next slide, please. So here's an example. The code development process requires very strict documentation. This is for an amendment as a sample. Anything that is struck through is language we are removing. Anything that is underlined is language that we are including. And so you can see here that the suggested text of the proposed amendment has a strikeout and an underline, so that in the code text, if adopted, you see those changes. And then for every single rule that we write, we have to write a rationale. Why we're doing it. Why are we amending this rule? And that's what the rationale proposes. Next slide, please. So prior to proceeding with regulatory development work, DSA must ask, when we have our public hearing or we have a proposal, we have to ask, is it an enforcement issue? Is it an operational issue? Or is it a regulatory issue? So DSA cannot direct how a business operates. So we can't say all accessible check stands in the grocery store must be operable at all times. That's an operational issue. we can only address in the building code the design of the check stand to be accessible. So if a constituent comes to us and has a complaint saying, I go to my store and the accessible check stand is not always open, we want you to write regulations for an accessible check stand. We have to say it's not in our purview to write regulations that are operational. So we would not be able to proceed with that amendment. Sometimes it's an enforcement issue. My local building department does not enforce X. We need you to address that with the building department. Well, we don't write regulations that are specific to one entity in their enforcement practices. State law gives the authority of the local building department to enforce the code as they read it. And so, while we can engage with them for clarity purposes and see if they have any questions, they can always reach out to us, but we can't write a regulation that requires something to be enforced. We can only write the regulations they can enforce. So we ask that question. The other thing is we don't like to be very heavy with regulatory development. Having constant change in the code actually diminishes compliance because there's constant change. And so we often ask, is it a requirement that just needs more advocacy or more training to produce a desired result, as opposed to another regulation to do that? We have an advocacy and training arm in our DSA Academy. So we always encourage building departments, design professionals to avail themselves of training to get that greater clarity. The third is, will a building code regulation address the problem? And so if that's the case, then we consider it for regulatory development. Anything that's proposed to us that is a building code related item, we do have to determine if we have the staff resources to do that work in the present code cycle. As I stated, when we have our public hearings, sometimes it requires a task force. And so we have to table it for the next rulemaking cycle so that we can have that task force experience. In writing our regulations, we have to write them so they are enforceable. So can the regulation be enforced? And if sometimes you can regulate something, but there really is no way to enforce it. And so we have to always consider that enforcement aspect before we write an accessibility regulation. We also have to look at if the regulation creates an unintended or potentially negative consequence. And of course, our outreach with all our stakeholders illuminates that. And then of course, is the regulation reasonable to all our impacted? And our stakeholder outreach provides that forum to have all stakeholders determine whether or not the regulation is reasonable. For example, if individuals with disabilities determine that they want every single electric vehicle charging station to be accessible, which requires additional space, right? A business owner might say, okay, that's unreasonable because it limits the amount of parking I can provide. It affects my business. And so through that discussion, we determine what is reasonable number for both stakeholders so that we can ensure access is provided, but it is not essentially difficult for business owners to actually provide. Next slide, please. So here's a little bit of a graphic. When you propose a building code amendment or a new regulation, is to ask yourself, is the issue already addressed in the CBC? Oftentimes I have an issue with this. I think you need to develop a regulation. We say, we already have that. Here's where it is. Does a new regulation address the issue, and can the regulation be enforced by the building department? If yes, then DSA can consider it. If no, who can we refer it to? So if it's an education issue, oftentimes we refer it to the CCDA. They're the ones who are the education arm for businesses, correct? The other one, Disability Works California. Sometimes if it's an employment issue, we will refer it to them. Or if it's just an education issue, meaning that we need to provide better training on the requirements at DSA Academy. Next slide, please. So we also provide access compliance resources and materials on our website. Next slide. And you can find that on the Access Compliance Reference Materials page. We have a guide for public housing, which with the development of all the public housing programs that have arisen to address homelessness and affordability, there's very specific requirements for accessibility, both federal and state. And this guide actually guides you in ensuring that you're meeting all the requirements, both federal and state. And there's a lot of flow charts in there that you can ask the questions to ensure that you're meeting the requirements. We also have our after every rulemaking cycle, we update our access compliance reference manual. And what this provides are advisories that have an opportunity to clarify even further a regulation that we've proposed that allows for consideration. And sometimes we can provide tips in there as well that are operational. Because we can't regulate operational, we can provide guidance in there saying, consider this when doing this. And so that's how we respond sometimes to the operational issues that we get or the enforcement issues that we get. We provide an advisory to guide both the enforcement entities, design professionals, and users on the regulations. And then also you will find accessibility frequently asked questions, our requirement of certification of our code, which has been at the U.S. Department of Justice. We're required to have our code certified as an equivalent to the ADA. That is their process. We've submitted. They haven't even gotten to it yet. And other accessibility resources that are here on our website. Next slide, please. Of course, we also have the Certified Access Specialist Program, which is discussed often here at the CCDA. And we do test development and certification and training for Certified Access Specialists. Next slide, please. We have our CAS business outreach, and this advises individuals, business owners about hiring a CAS, disability access inspections, what their responsibility is under state law, how to file a complaint about a CASP, how to get financing for ADA improvements. There's a lot of good resources for businesses on this page. Next slide, please. And then, of course, we also have the Disability Access Education Revolving Fund fee information, which April had discussed earlier, is the fees that we get are 10% goes into the DERF fund. The local fund is called the Accessibility Compliance Fund. And so here is information for jurisdictions on how to submit their information to us. But there's also resources on here that they can use to encourage the use of CASPs, and also ideas in our annual report of how they can use the funds that they collect on their end. Next slide, please. And then, of course, our training on DSA Academy. This training is for free. It's required to be for free, and it comes from the source. So through this training, we're able to offer continuing education, especially for design professionals that are required to have 5 units every 2 years on access compliance to renew licensure. And so we're constantly developing additional training resources on our DSA Academy, but these are the ones that we have right now that are available on demand, except for CASP 101, which is offered 3 times a year, and that is virtual, not on demand. The other 4 are on demand. Next slide, please. And then if there's any questions from the commissioners or anyone in the audience, now's an opportunity to ask questions. Anyone?
Okay.
Well, one more slide. I just want to make sure that everyone understands. Next slide. How to subscribe to our listserv so that you get information on our outreach, when we're holding our public outreach, when we're holding our ACC, that you can listen to our Access Code Collaborative, when the commission meetings are happening. Go to our DSA, www.dgs.ca.gov/DSA. That's our landing page. If you go all the way to the bottom, it says subscribe, and you can subscribe to access information, and you will get all those information. And then again, of course, the rest of the information is on our website. And It's required to be accessible. I'm pretty sure it's accessible because I don't test the accessibility. We have folks that do that, but we have testers, so it's an accessible website. And now I'm done. Thanks. I see that there's a question.
This is Commissioner Profazza. Could you please repeat that address?
Sure. www.dgs, Department of General Services, dgs.ca, California.ca.gov, government, /DSA, dgs.ca.gov/DSA.
Thank you.
And this is Commissioner Ramirez. If they have a question, I want to thank you. This is very informative for me as I've learned more about the work that DGS does. And within the training and learning capacity, is there capacity within your learning academy for non-English speakers or non-English proficient? For some of our other people with disabilities or other individuals that want to get trained to be able to access this training, or is this English only?
So on our DSA, the training is accessible, but it is only offered in English, not in other languages at this time.
Okay, so first of all, how about a nice CCDA thank you to our state architect and Commissioner Ida Clair. Thank you very much. Great presentation. Okay, let's move on to some questions and
Chat.
oh, on the chat? Okay, please, let's go to those.
Beth, do you have a question?
Oh, yeah, no, I just wanted to reiterate. Hi, this is Beth. I'm with the Building Standards Commission. And Ida, your 45-day public comment period begins July 26th and it goes through September 9th.
Thanks, Beth. I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you for that. And first of all, let's see if there's any comments or questions from the commissioners who are attending virtually. Do we have any questions from those commissioners virtually?
This is Commissioner Shapiro. I don't have any questions, but I do want to express my appreciation for the presentation. It was very informative and I very much appreciate the time to put it together and present it to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions from commissioners virtually? If none, commissioners present. Mr. Dillard? Commissioner Dillard?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Dillard. Fantastic presentation. My question, you kind of answered it at the end when you referred to housing, and you, at that particular point, you brought up federal government and the state. And my question is more around, in general, we talk about all the issues from a state perspective, and we have meetings and we have Q&A and we work together very strongly. But I'm curious, are we in sync with all the federal government programs, or are there things we need to maybe look at and work with them more so?
So yes and no. Okay. So, you know, the Attorney General of California has made it very clear that enforcement entities cannot enforce the ADA. They can only enforce the building code. So at your local jurisdiction, they will ensure a project that's submitted complies with the building code. They will not review it for the ADA. So design professionals and owners are responsible for ensuring compliance to the ADA. I will say, however, that in state law, in our charge, DSA is charged to meeting the minimum of the ADA. So we say, if you are complying with the building code, you should be meeting the minimum of the ADA because we are the guard keepers of that in our building code. However, because we can't specifically enforce the ADA, we can't say, our certification process to the U.S. Department of Justice, California law requires DSA to submit the code to the U.S. Department of Justice for certification. If the U.S. Department of Justice through their certification says, yes, your building code is an equivalent to the ADA, then you don't have to enforce the ADA. I mean, you could be rest assured, but just because we say, yes, we believe we're equivalent, it hasn't been certified at the federal level yet. And so as a result, it is still incumbent upon a business owner and a design professional in designing a construction project to check both.
So there's an opportunity
Yes.
there. Yeah, okay.
Second is when it comes to public housing, California state law in government code 12955.1 requires us to meet the minimum of the Fair Housing Act. It does not require us to meet the Uniform Federal Accessibility Standards. And so we do meet the minimum of the Fair Housing Act for our public housing for the adaptability. The ADA does meet the minimum requirements generally under Section 504, which is a lot of what the UFAS is based on in the ADA. So we feel that with ADAS and with Section 504, we cover a good portion of UFAS. There are 12 provisions in UFAS that are not in our code, but the Uniform Accessibility Standards apply only to HUD-funded projects. So it's a matter of what's the program, what's required, what are we required to provide in the code, you know what I mean? So the Guide to Public Housing helps with that because it'll say you must comply with UFAS, then you would require to go to UFAS. In other words, a design professional and an owner, depending on what the funding sources require for accessibility, really are incumbent to know what each are and look at each to ensure they comply. So we provide that assistance, but we can't write regulations. We are charged in code to meet the minimum of the ADA and FHA. So there are more. They don't apply broad-based to every project, but there are a few more. Yeah. That answered your question, I hope. Okay.
Thank you both. Okay, let's see if there are any comments from the public who are attending virtually on this item and presentation. Do we have any comments or questions from the public?
Vice Chair Commissioner Holloway, there appears to be no indication in the chat.
Okay, any from our public guests today, any questions? Would you like the microphone? Yes.
Thank you. Is it on? Hello? There we go. Okay. I want to thank you for a extremely comprehensive presentation. That was excellent. But what I do want to stress is one thing that you mentioned is the Access Compliance Manual, which in advocacy terms is so much easier to present than presenting your argument with just the dry code. It's nice to have the official argument of the state. And I wish you guys would push that manual to more people. But thank you. It was absolutely, completely comprehensive of the entire cycle process. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no further questions, then I'd like to move on to, I'm sorry, Commissioner.
This is Commissioner Profazza. Again, thank you, Commissioner Clair, for an excellent presentation. Is it possible to get a copy of the PowerPoint presentation? The charts were so clear and outstanding, and I'd like to review them even more thoroughly if I might.
Sure. You can assist with that? Okay, perfect. I'll send it over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Profazza. Okay, going on to the next item, number 11, is the next full commission meeting, and Executive Director Dawson Rollins.
Thank you, Vice Chair Commissioner Holloway. And just a moment, thank you to Operations Manager Phil McFall for briefly taking over for me for the Executive Director report and the financials. If I did not answer your question, I know he did an excellent job, but since I wasn't there, if I did not answer your question, you can email me at april.dawsonrollings@dgs.ca.gov and I can answer your question, and I can also bring it up, anything that wasn't covered at a future meeting. Apologies feeling a little under the weather today. But this is just a reminder that our next full commission meeting is going to take place on Wednesday, October 23rd, 2024. It will be a regular meeting from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. This is a little bit creative because we're fitting in a listening forum, taking an opportunity today to do a morning meeting and an afternoon listening forum. And sometimes we'll do that again, depending on how this one is received and testing this out. And so we are still finalizing the location for the October full commission meeting. It's looking like the Bay Area is the option that we will most likely go with, but I will share with you, we're just finalizing some contracting and making sure that the venues are fully accessible. We're also going to be working with staff for 2025, 2026 meetings, because we want to make sure that we're covering all areas of the state equally and making sure that we're also hitting the areas of the state that match our high frequency litigant data, so that we can reach out to those communities and pair some of these meetings with our programming as well. So you'll be hearing more about making sure that we're equally going across the state, since we are a statewide commission. So we'll see you somewhere on October 23rd, 2024, and it will be high. And you can also join us on Zoom as well, too. So
Okay.
thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Okay. Questions from commissioners attending virtually? None appearing. Commissioners in person, any questions on next meeting? None appearing. For our public members online, any questions or thoughts? None appearing. And our public member, any questions? Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on to item number 12, future agenda items for the commission. Does anybody either the commissioners present or online, have suggestions or desires for any future commission items, agenda items?
And this is Commissioner Ramirez. And I've been very fortunate to have seen our executive director present in a lot of our stakeholder meetings in California and throughout the state regarding some of the new regulatory change to state federal disability laws, particularly Section 404. And we have one coming up in a couple of months, particularly to housing. And so that's, again, one of the topics that I would recommend for future consideration, given some of the new change in the legal landscape, as well as a consideration for the topic of generative AI and the possible coordination that this commission can do with some of our other state agencies, like the Little Hoover Commission and the California Commission on Civil Rights, given some of the new change around generative AI and the way and the opportunities that we have both for businesses, but as well as some of the potential concerns and limitations that we want to be aware of. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, anyone from the public or online have any suggestions for future agenda items? None appearing. And from our guest today, any additional ideas? None appearing. Okay, then we will move on to the last item, 13. But before we do that, we need to take roll, if I recall. And so, Presley, will you please take roll?
Yes, Vice Chair Commissioner Holloway. I believe we just need a motion to adjourn, 2 motions, and then I can take the roll call.
Okay, Chair would be pleased to have a motion to
Make a
adjourn.
motion that this is Commissioner Lillibridge. I make a motion we adjourn the meeting today.
Second, Commissioner Ellis.
Awesome. I will start the roll call. Commissioner Downey, Commissioner Holloway,
Aye.
Commissioner Diller,
Aye.
Commissioner Dr. El Hessen,
Aye.
Commissioner Jackson,
Aye.
Commissioner Leon Vasquez, Commissioner Lillibridge,
Aye.
Commissioner Dr. Profasa,
Aye.
Commissioner Ramirez,
Aye.
Commissioner Shapiro.
Aye.
Okay, and with that, Vice Chair Commissioner Holloway, all CCDA commissioner votes have been noted. The motion carries, and I will pass it back to you.
Okay, we are adjourned and we will see you at the listening session in a few minutes.